Nicholas,
That's that guy.
you worked with Clint Eastwood.
I did.
I'm excited to have you on the podcast today. It's going to be a great time.
Thank you for having me. Very
And
excited.
congratulations on Lex Luthor.
Thank you. Happy to be here with you.
All right.
So how about Lex meeting Lex there at the beginning? So we'll be talking more about Nicholas Hoult on Michael Rosenbaum's Inside of You podcast in a bit. But yes, we're going into other news surrounding Superman, and seriously, really intriguing news. I know I say that all the time, but there's looks at the Fortress of Solitude set. I mean, you know, the surrounding areas, if you will. But Gunn was speaking to a news outlet in Norway, talking about why Superman went to the fortress. There's a little bit of a clue there that I'm just like, oh, this might be following along what I've maybe been saying, but I definitely would like your input down in that comment section with regards to that. And of course, other tidbits that we're going to go over in this video. Gunn addresses Comic Con this year, or should I say the lack thereof, which I definitely want to get into with what that means for DC reveals and news this year. And there's other little tidbits on DCU projects such as Lanterns and probably something I'm forgetting right now. But as always, the video is timestamped, and I'm already losing my voice. The video is timestamped. Skip around if you want, but I don't recommend it because stick around for all of it so you're up to date on absolutely everything. So right away, I want to cover this article from VG. Now, as you can see at the top there, they have a little bit of the wind machines and various equipment in place for filming. So again, as I've said recently, they're blatantly filming the Fortress of Solitude. Now Gunn has basically confirmed that in this interview with what we're about to read out, but it's not like they've built a fortress at this location. This is probably some surrounding areas, some backdrops of what they're also going to kind of merge together for the actual set of the fortress that they blend in with it. As VG go and say here in this article, Gunn, who is behind films such as Guardians of the Galaxy, tells the newspaper that it has been a special experience to start filming in Adventdalen in Svalbard. So we've filmed the first scenes which, and this is where it gets interesting, we have filmed the first scenes which are when Superman flees to the ice fortress. And again, with the translation, I just want to say that Deadline re-reported this, saying, "We have filmed the first scenes which show Superman fleeing to the Fortress of Solitude. We wanted a place that was beautiful and felt like being in the middle of the Arctic, so we looked at several places in the world, but there were many things that sold Svalbard for us over the other places. First, there is the natural beauty, but also the fact that you'll find a varied landscape here that you won't find anywhere else. Nature gives a special feeling." And according to Gunn, filming took place from 8 in the morning until around 4 in the afternoon every day. People have been curious about the filming, the director tells the newspaper. And that's true. A lot of people have been wondering, has no one, like, anywhere nearby snapped a photo, considering David Corenswet would be in his suit, or at least, you know, maybe for a few of the days. We have had some who have been curious, yes, who have stood and watched, but that's perfectly fine. And that's a big difference, because being interested in just watching is something completely different than when you have people trying to sneak into the set to take pictures that they can make money from by selling online. So yeah, I know people have been looking, by the way, like proper looking for any kind of bystander photos out there, scouring the internet, you know, Instagram, Facebook, anything with regards to those locations, but there's been absolutely nothing other than, you know, the images that you're seeing in this article and a couple of, you know, promotional photos of Gunn doing these interviews. So what I obviously want to talk about first is what James Gunn said with his description as to what they're filming with the first scenes, as he says, which shows Superman fleeing to the Fortress of Solitude. Now, I do want to stress that this is being, like, translated. I don't know if it's loosely or accurate. You can argue, I just want to put this out there, but if we hypothetically, as I always like to say, entertain if this is true, and fleeing does actually kind of mean fleeing, even though I do think that word can be interpreted quite a few ways, we do know that Maria Gabriela de Farias, the engineer, is also on set, or was on set, at this location with David Corenswet Superman. We know and can basically rule out that Nicholas Hoult's Lex and Rachel Brosnahan's Lois wasn't there. Any kind of stuff that you saw, like that TikTok video, seemed to be filmed around the time of that table read in Atlanta. But as for this, sure, there might be some other actors or extras out there. I don't know. Maybe not, because this is like where the fortress is. But it does seem to be that the engineer is there, and I've gone on about this in recent videos, and Superman. So when you put 2 and 2 together here, with Gunn explaining to the local outlet, "We have filmed the first scenes which show Superman fleeing to the Fortress of Solitude," it kind of adds up with what I was saying, with how I do think that the engineer will be kind of brushing up the wrong way of Superman, maybe starting off on the wrong foot for, by the end of the movie, that to turn around. Because as we know, the engineer isn't a villain. She's more of an anti-hero in the sense, with the authority, and where they do try and do the right things. It's just they might not have the same playbook or rule book that Superman and, the Justice League might have. They kind of do anything by any means necessary, and they're going to get the job done. Right, which is why a lot of people compare it to, Billy Butcher's The Boys. They have the best interests at heart. I mean, most of the time, if you know what I mean. But like, they're not straight up Homelander villains, are they? Obviously not. So I'm not saying that this is concrete whatsoever, and you may even be saying, why would Superman be fleeing from anyone unless they have kryptonite, right? That's another point we need to bear in mind. Would Superman be fleeing, as in fleeing in the traditional sense of the word, which obviously means to basically run away from something or some kind of, dangerous situation? And Superman doesn't really have much to fear there, but you could interpret, this is why I need to heavily stress, theories, speculation. It could mean 1,000 different variations of fleeing, and I know this is kind of absurd speculation to some of you. It's like, you're already breaking down the word fleeing, but just stay with me here. The movie might pick up with him being forced to go there because of a situation that happened. Again, if you believe that original Middle Eastern plot, that did actually turn out to be true because of the whole Bassem Youssef situation, and where his role was dropped because the script changed, and where apparently a part of that Middle Eastern plot had something to do with Superman going over there. Don't worry, this isn't too leaky. This is very public information. And there was some kind of thing that he went there for that was apparently meant to garner some attention. Now, apparently that is still happening in the plot, but it's just that the location has changed from the Middle East to maybe somewhere in Europe. We don't truly know. That is very whispery right now. But I'm just saying, maybe there's something that kind of forces him to flee out there to kind of get to the fortress, to kind of maybe, touch base, observe the situation, what the heck is going on. That kind of vibe. I don't know. It's just that maybe the authority member, the engineer, as with my theories, I don't know if the authority is established as of right now. I think that could be a thing that happens towards the end of the movie. But initially, maybe she's sent on behalf of some group. I don't know whether that's Luthor, whether that's Waller, whether that's some kind of government thing. I don't know. But in the land of heroes existing and having existed with potential Kingdom Come influences of so many heroes out there, perhaps there is some form of regulation, and the engineer is being used in such a way to be dispatched after Superman. And that's why she also ends up in this location, of which we literally know is the case, with Maria Gabriela de Faria, James Gunn pointing out that she was rolling around in the snow, and there's a video of that along with David Corenswet. So you get my point. I think she's going to be a very interesting character. I would take what I just suggested very, very loosely. Again, it's important to stress, fleeing to the fortress, as James Gunn said. Does that really mean what it means in the traditional and initial perceived context? Or did he mean it in such a way where just, hey, Superman's flying to the fortress? Or is he actually fleeing some kind of situation to touch base? That remains to be determined. But when you add that in conjunction with the engineer being there, it maybe starts to paint a little bit of a picture, but I can't stress enough with how we don't know so much at the same time, so God knows what can really be going on. It's also interesting to note that there have been people watching, as he says, and that's fine, but nobody has managed to snap anything too crazy by the sounds of it, otherwise we would have had that surface online. But never say never. But speaking of which, he does go on to say that they will film scenes in Ohio, as we already know, and that he expects a lot of paparazzi. So we do know that won't be for a little while yet. Not like a massive amount of time, but that is when we might get a full suit reveal in the next month, give or take, because as Gunn is comparing here, there's a difference between filming where he is right now and obviously going to Ohio, where you're probably, if Superman is in the suit and it's not just some Clark Kent scenes, then yeah, you're going to get a photo shot from like 100 meters away. And will Gunn want that to get out, or will he want like a nice, really, I don't know, camera test type shot that's been ready in his photo library to go for a while, but he's just been waiting to post it? And in some other little tidbits here, he's been asked on threads, hi James, how is filming going, from DCU updates there, and he put a crying face, and he's like, those are happy tears. Like, if you really put your project your mind into James Gunn's shoes, I mean, despite how busy he is, if filming is going well and everything is just going fine and dandy, and if not more than that, he must be so elated. If it's going as well as he's making it sound there, I can only imagine how much of a ball of a time, as they say, he's having, as well as David Corenswet and whoever else, like the engineer and whatnot. Now, taking a quick break from that before we dive into some other DCU things, I wanted to quickly talk about Nicholas Hoult being on the latest episode of Michael Rosenbaum's podcast, Inside of You. Now, I recommend checking this episode out yourself. I am a huge fan of Michael Rosenbaum's podcast. Now, there are little tidbits, nothing too crazy, but I don't think any of us expected like him to be like, oh, this is what happened, this is the material I had in the audition, this is what I'm gonna do. But they do talk about a couple of things, such as how Nicholas Hoult's first iteration of Superman and Lex Luthor was actually Smallville. Nothing else that came afterwards. He watched the Donner movies after that, but initially it was Smallville, and considers Michael Rosenbaum's portrayal the best. And when Michael Rosenbaum mentions that Nicholas Hoult seems a bit built, if you will, Hoult does say that he has been working out, and the quote is as follows. There's that bit in All-Star Superman where he talks about his muscles being real, and Superman, like hard work and all of that. I kind of took that as a little bit of, like, fuel for the fire. So what he was going to say before he kind of cut himself off, like he says how Lex Luthor talks about his muscles being real, and Superman, but then he was probably going to go on to say, like, and how Superman's obviously aren't, with regards to, they are real, but the Kryptonian physiology on Earth and the sun and all of that makes it such that, you know, he's just insanely strong. But Lex views it as he put such hard work, obviously, to be, I guess, as strong as he is with the muscles he's flexing. Maybe I'm showing that panel on screen. What I love about what Hoult said there is that he's been reading some Superman material. As we know from James Gunn, All-Star Superman will be one of the influence, along with probably for all seasons and several others, for the movie. Nothing one-to-one adapted, of course, although having said that, maybe some ideas, for example, maybe Lex's Guardians of the City, like Lex Corp Troopers, could be a thing, especially in this Kingdom Come climate, of course. And there's also some other things where he goes on to praise James Gunn's writing, and he talks a bit about the audition process with James Gunn and how he has this ability to keep things fun, alive, and, you know, just trying things in the moment. And he'll shout out from the monitors, like, say this line, do this. That's something I really enjoy. Basically just improvising lines there and then, hey, say this, hey, say it like that. And I guess having multiple takes like that can really kind of keep things fluid and creative, rather than just sticking to things to an absolute T. Now, I'm not saying that they don't follow their own screenplay, but do you know what I mean? I feel like this is quite a unique thing from Gunn compared to other directors. I'm not saying other directors don't do it, but Gunn really seems to just, while shooting, compared to what he had written on page for the script, he might there and then be like, hey, what about doing this version of it? Hey, say the line like this, or say this variation of the line, because it might be better on that day. I want to quickly address something on Threads. Gunn said in response to this fan asking, is that real stitching, or is it like an imprint like Cavill had chains imprinted on his spandex? So with regards to the symbol, right? And Gunn said real texture, not ink. So yeah, the actual kind of weaving, if you will, look to the Superman symbol is real texture. It's not ink, but also it just kind of makes me broaden this conversation to what I've been seeing. And look, let me start off by saying I get it. Different strokes for different folks. Some of you do not like this. But some of you, not all of you, because, you know, clearly it's not all of you, but I get comments every now and again. It's like 1 in every 12 comments or something where somebody is being like so, in terms of, oh my God, this is just terrible, unoriginal, uninspired. And I'm like, first of all, with that, I just want to give my response to these types of comments. What do you mean? There's never been a Superman symbol like this in live action. So, like, what do you mean unoriginal? If anything, if they went with more of a blatant S, that would have been less original, is it not? Now, obviously, it's not wholly original, because this is still inspired from a Superman logo in the comics, from Alex Ross's Kingdom Come. But yeah, I find that fascinating. Also, secondly, people are saying that doesn't look like an S, it looks like a C. What? What? Are you blind? Are ye blind? Like, how do you see a C No, I mean, I mean, maybe like what they're saying is the broad stroke in the middle, but like the whole point is you see the little thin red at the top, you have the bold bit in the middle, and it carries on along the bottom. Yeah, to say it's unoriginal and to say that it looks like a C, guys, I don't know what some of you are smoking out there. You can just say that, hey, it's not my preference, but like what are some of these takes coming out of it? Now, the other one is a lot of people, I think this one's really silly as well, saying they're posting like memes of it. With a basketball, because the basketball texture or something. Now, a basketball texture doesn't have the suit texture. It's got like little dots on it. This is like little, it's almost like chainmail, if you will. But either way, you know, no matter what, I guess hate is gonna hate. Look, I get it if some of you are just prodding jokes at it a little bit, but I personally really like it. But I'm not saying you have to. But even if it wasn't my preference, so to speak, I still don't see how some people are saying that it's unoriginal. It looks like a C. I'm just like, what? Like, what? So now let's talk about Comic Con, ladies and gentlemen, because funnily enough, I spoke about this in my previous video in where I talked about how this one user said, hey, David Zaslav said that you're going to reveal the full spectrum of the DCU plans within the next few months or whatever it was. Hey, are you going to Comic Con, or like, will you be doing this at Comic Con? And Gunn responded, and I'm paraphrasing here, those are our only two options. And that was very interesting. So it's like, okay, which way is he going to kind of talk about these things? Because that didn't explicitly mean Comic Con, which is funny because that will come back into this in a second. Because now we have this user saying, are you excited for Comic Con this year? And Gunn responds, I will be shooting. And people are like, you know, wait, no DC presence? What's going to go on then? And then another user or some kind of outlet said, James Gunn confirms that he's going to be at San Diego Comic Con, and he was like, I didn't. We'll be working. So, very interesting, by the way, that Superman Legacy is not only filming all of March, all of April, all of May, all of June, and into July, you know, when Comic-Con kicks off. And I'm guessing that outlet claimed, I don't know why they claimed that he confirmed he'd be at San Diego Comic-Con. Maybe they got it confused with, for example, in my previous video, I highlighted that tweet of Gunn saying last year, no, he won't be at last year's Comic-Con, but probably next, which is this year's. So people, as a result, with him saying probably next, I mean, he said probably, but thought, okay, you know, he's probably going to be at this Comic-Con, but clearly no longer a thing. But I don't think people should freak out. Like, do not fear, because remember how he said one of the recent responses, those are our only two options, indicating, oh, are we really just going to be doing it at Comic-Con, or is there something else I can do? Now, obviously, he could divulge more plans in other ways, so maybe a DC fandom-esque kind of thing, but don't expect like a full-blown revived DC fandom, as much as I do want that, and I'm rallying for that to come back in the future. I don't know what he's got planned, but all I can say to you is that I do feel like we're going to get more DC info this year, albeit I don't think we need to learn about all these future unannounced projects, because my reason for that is, as much as I selfishly kind of want that at the same time, of course, why wouldn't I want to know what goes into Chapter 2 and everything like that, we still have around about 8 to 10 projects to be announced for Chapter 1, because Gunn said that the projects in January last year that were announced were less than half. Do we really need to learn so much more when we haven't even got the bare minimum, to be honest, revealed to us about the first 12 projects, at number 11 and 12 being the DCU Arkham series and Peacemaker Season 2. Do you know what I mean? So I feel like we will get info floated out there. Don't freak out that he says, I didn't, we'll be working, and I'll be shooting when it comes to Comic-Con, because there is that other response for the last time in where he says those are our only two options. So I don't know if they're planning on doing another YouTube video. I don't know if he's just planning to talk about it more in a bloody Threads response. I hope not. Or whatever else. But I think the tweet you're seeing on screen right now, or rather a thread post, is certainly hinting that there are other options that he's exploring to divulge more info to us about the DCU and its future. Now, in other DCU project news here, we have this user asking, any news on Lanterns? And Gunn responds with a very happy, smiley emoji face. Now, some people are kind of taking this to mean this could be a tease for news coming out soon with regards to Lanterns. I don't know about that. I would love for that to be the case because Lanterns is by far my top 3 most anticipated DCU projects out there. I'm so pumped for it. So pumped. This could honestly just mean, and this is what these speculative reports are all about here on the BobaTalks channel, just to be on the other side of things for once, that, hey, there's my news. As far as James Gunn, the news is like my happy response. Like, things are going well, things are great, that's the Lanterns news. I wouldn't be surprised if that's all he meant by that. But yeah, at the same time, I don't blame anyone for thinking any news on Lanterns, and he just teases with a happy face, and as a result, people are looking into that being, oh my god, are we going to hear something maybe soon about Lanterns? And if that would be the case, it would be maybe one of those projects going into early development, and then hopefully casting would be underway soon, or something like that. But for once, I'm kind of believing the former. I hope I'm wrong about it, but I think the smiley face in of itself is the news on Lanterns. It's just like, hey, double thumbs up, things are going well, things that you don't know about, but just good vibes. I don't know. Now, for another DCU project update here, we've got some awesome details on Creature Commandos. So initially from Gunn himself, with this user saying, hey, James and Creature Commandos, we don't have any news about the series so far. So are you forgetting about it? As I always say to people, just because there might not be any news, it doesn't mean there isn't news. It just means they're not ready to talk about it yet. But either way, Gunn did, saying, definitely not forgetting. All the animatics are cut and finalized, and now we're working on the actual animation and finishes, which is time-consuming. Which, yeah, I mean, Jesus, the animation takes a very long time. And Alan Tudyk had this to say about Creature Commandos, and this was awesome to hear. I am doing Creature Commandos, which James Gunn wrote, and it's going to be the first thing that DC does with him at the helm, and it's animated. And I am Dr. Phosphorus. Thank you. I wasn't about to say fluorescent, and he's so cool. And the whole thing, but like, this is Creature Commandos. I look at the one sheet, and it's like Frankenstein's in there, and some chick with her, like, she's got a fish head, and she's got water on her head. And I'm like, where do all of these how do they fit together? This looks bad, maybe. And then I'm like a guy who looks a lot like Ghost Rider, but it's not. It's Dr. Phosphorus. It's DC, a whole different thing, and it's the best thing I've read. And that sounds absolutely fantastic. I mean, I know people out there will already say, of course, an actor's going to hype up their own work kind of thing, but I really do think that for now, Creature Commandos is kind of being slept on. Maybe not by you or you in the back there, but, you've all seen the responses of some people out there being like, oh, I don't really care about this project. Why is Gunn doing this? Who's the authority? Why am I going to care about that? Why aren't they going into Justice League Part 1 and Part 2 straight off the back kind of thing? And it's like, well, I don't know. Do we really want that right away? But I get where they're coming from. But I do think Gunn is going to make these properties the diamond properties of tomorrow, as he said himself. Now, I mean, having said that, I'm not saying Creature Commandos is going to catapult and rocket off into mainstream popularity right away, but I do think this is going to be like a little secret assassin, if you know what I mean. Before you know it, it's going to be there, it's going to already be released, and then it's going to, I reckon, get a massive following, and there's going to be positive news and media about it. I mean, I could be wrong, obviously, but I've heard nothing but praise about this for a long time now. Gunn did very well with Peacemaker. People loved it. And even though this is animated and that's not everyone's cup of tea necessarily, and it's more of an aperitif, this appetizer, as Gunn put it, to the DCU, I still think it's going to be in its own little microcosm of the DCU animated side, which is still canon to the mainline DCU. This very, very popular and hopefully really nicely written and just quality piece of storytelling and fun that we're gonna get, really, and I can't wait. I can't wait for the voice actors from Alan Tudyk to David Harbour, and obviously there's Anya Chalotra who's playing Cersei. She's a Wonder Woman villain, so is she gonna pop up in live action? I mean, you'd have to think so. I mean, Weasel is in it by Sean Gunn, so yeah, very canonical. I can't wait. I really can't wait. I get why you right now might be thinking, Creature Commandos, we'll see how it goes when it comes out, but I think it's going to really be like, oh, damn. I'm not saying it's going to blow people's minds to the heights of Invincible and things like that, but you never know. It could be something that takes that audience by storm, and where people weren't really anticipating that out of the gate. from a while ago. So we're going to have to wait and see, but I'm hyped. But ladies and gentlemen, I'm going to leave it there for today's video. There were some other stories I wanted to get into, but I'm going to save that for maybe the next video. We're going to have to wait and see. But let me know what you thought about each and every topic that I discussed. We'd love to know your thoughts on the whole Superman fleeing to the fortress thing, to just everything else. I'll see you down there in that comment section. You can support the channel, by the way, by leaving a like. It really does help out. Kind of tells YouTube that you're actually enjoying the content, so it might promote me out there a little bit more. Consider subscribing, of course, if you want to stay up to date with more videos like this. But that is absolutely everything. Gotta love you and leave you now, so just thank you so much for watching. I hope you have a lovely rest of your day, and I'll see you fellow fans with the DCU in the next video. Goodbye.